my fellow comic book collectors, it's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is going to be a tag video where Lettuce Comics, a friend of the channel, tagged me on underrated or undervalued books. He showed 5. He actually he talked about whole like things that have been devalued. I'm going to talk about one thing that's been a pet peeve that I think is underrated or undervalued. So I'm going to tag a few channels as well at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But I'm going to show you ones that are Golden Age. I'm going to really focus on the Golden Age because I feel like this channel is one of the ambassadors for the Golden Age. So these are underrated or comics from the Golden Age. And one of them actually isn't even a comic, but it is something that I think is underrated and has a huge amount of importance for comic collecting. And I just have to mention it, and it drives me crazy how underrated it is. So I'm gonna get into that in a minute, but let's get into the first one. The first one is Dollman. Dollman is a character that existed before Ant-Man, before the Atom. There was Dollman, okay? And Dollman, he made his first cover appearance in Feature Comics, and also this is his first cover appearance. This is Feature Comics number 30, I believe, number 30, and very cool character. You know, you can see he's got he's super strong, but he's very small, and he's like a doll. And this book, even though it's like, what grade did they say it is? It's a VG plus, $100. You know, and this is his first cover appearance, a Golden Age character. A hard book to find. I think there's like less than 20 on the census. Just underrated, undervalued book. And the character himself is underrated, undervalued. So many cool covers, so many cool stories. Just a really cool character that should get more love. I think, you know, one of these characters that really needs more love. He's actually within the DC franchise. And so they have the ability to do stuff with him if they ever choose to. But Dollman, underrated. Definitely a cool character. And more people should show him some love. I think definitely underrated. Another underrated title, and it's one that was very popular in the Golden Age, lasted for a long, long time, and it has some really cool covers. Now, when I say it's underrated, some of the early covers do command pretty big money, but if you look at the later issues in this series, they are fairly affordable, like $10. You know, so you can buy a Golden Age comic for about $10. That's, to me, that's underrated. And the series is called Boy Comics. Now, this is one of the more expensive earlier issues. This is Boy Comics number 4. It's like, so it's pretty early on in the series. I mean, I think it starts with issue number 3. So it's like the second issue or something like that. But this is like, you can see what I'm talking about with the cool covers. You got Hitler and Mussolini and Tojo on the cover. You got the boys coming in. They're carving up the world. Crime Buster and his team are coming in to save the day. Just a really cool series. They have this cool character called Iron Jaw, who's like a Nazi with like this crazy like Iron Jaw, as his name applies. Really cool covers with him, a lot of them. Just a really great series that kind of got lost to the Golden Age, and you can pick up Boy Comics pretty inexpensively. After about issue, I would say in the 30s, it gets, from after that point, it gets fairly inexpensive, but lots of really great covers, amazing covers in this title, and definitely underrated. The artwork was often done by Charles Biro, one of the greats of the Golden Age, and a lot of them, as I said, $10, $10, $20 max, you know, like maybe if it's super high grade, you know, more than that, but for the most part, you can get, you know, mid grades for about $10 to $20. Very, very affordable series. This earlier book obviously is much more than that, more like $1,000, but I'm talking about the later ones. So yeah, just a great series, totally underrated. This next thing I'm going to talk about is something which has been bothering me for a long, long time, and I've made many videos about it, complaining about this, where I think there's a category of comics that has received a bad reputation within the comic book space, and that as a result is underrated or undervalued as well. And it's restored comics. I'm going to show you a comic. You got this one, for example. I could have picked, like, I have a bunch of restored comics in my collection. And they're underrated in the respect that often in high grade, they command like a 10th, or even like some I've seen even a 20th of the value of a blue label. And to me, that's a real opportunity for, as a collector, to pick up a great book which might have a little bit of color touch. Sometimes their edge is trimmed, like somebody's taken off like a little fraying of the edge, and that gets restored. That's considered restored. But if somebody had just torn off that corner that was frayed, then that would have been fine. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. So restored books, especially if you buy it restored, you know what you're getting. It's not like, oh, surprise, it's restored. No, you know what you're getting. Often you really can get some really amazing deals where just a fraction of the value. And with Golden Age especially, a lot of the time, a lot of them were restored. I mean, it's just, natural thing. Like people, can do a little bit of color touch, fill in those little gaps. Or sometimes what would happen in the day, if you had a pretty good book, like a key book, you would want to get it professionally restored to make it look better, and actually, in many cases, actually keep the book from falling apart. So restoration is not this evil thing that a lot of collectors seem to treat it as. Like, they call it the purple label of death when you see this purple restored label. I think that's like unfair to the comics. I really do believe that they're underrated and undervalued. And the next thing that's actually, this is a bit of a 2-for-1 in terms of, I'm only going to do 5 things, but this one is a bit of a 2-for-1, because another thing that's underrated and undervalued is just DC Comics. This is Adventure Comics. This is the first appearance of Starman. But DC keys are way undervalued just compared to Marvel. It's insane how underrated and undervalued they are. For some pretty major characters, you get their first appearances for a fraction of what you could get a Marvel first appearance for. And often they're like much rarer and just as desirable, in my opinion. Like, the stories are, if better, or at least at par with Marvel ones. So DC, very underrated, and restored comics, very underrated. So that's 3. I have 2 more to go. And another thing that's sort of a broad sweeping underrated class is the Platinum Age. The Platinum Age of comics. We're talking any time before 1938, really, when Action 1 came out, are comics that are very, very hard to find. And often when you find them, they're actually not that expensive. They're very underrated considering what they are. And I'll give you an example of that. This is Tip Top Comics #1. Now, this is a major key. And considering all the key characters that are in this book, you would expect this to be tens of thousands of dollars. It has the first appearance of Tarzan, Little Abner, Ellie Cinders, a whole bunch of characters made their first appearance in this book. And this is a Platinum Age book. This is from 1936. Just a great book that is, in my opinion, overly underrated. This is insanely ignored in terms of the importance it has. Just one character, Tarzan, major character. The fact that you can get his first appearance, this is like maybe $1,000 book, $1,500 max. It sounds like a lot, but you compare that to like some Silver Age or even modern-ish book, like, Miles Morales. Like, he's a relatively new character. Tarzan is way bigger, in my opinion. Why is his book way more valuable than this? And the rarity of this, Miles Morales, there's like tens of thousands of them. This, there's like maybe 20, 30 or less. It's like not that many. So the scarcity is there, the characters are there, and the age is there. I mean, there's just so much going for these Platinum Age books, and yet they just not getting the love that they deserve. So so this is Tip Top Comics #1, representative of the Platinum Age of comics being underrated. Now the last thing that I have, one last item that I have, which I think is just totally underrated, and I really do see as a valuable collectible that you should pick up. And you can pick it up relatively cheaply, and that's why I say it's underrated, is this big book. This is a big book, and it's the photojournal guide to comic books. So this is the book that was created in the 90s. I believe it's from 1980s, 1989, the Gerber journal. It's called the Gerber Photojournal. And this book changed comic collecting forever. Forever. I mean, this book really had more influence on the hobby than pretty much any other guide. And the reason I say that, and I don't say that lightly, is before this, you had like the Overstreet Guide. And what the Overstreet Guide did was it said, here are the values of the comics, okay? But it didn't have pictures. It didn't have pictures. And often it would say the values of, number 1 through 5 is this price, 6 through 7 this price, and so forth. They would just be kind of like a bunch of numbers, and you'd see, okay, this book in this grade is worth X dollars. But you didn't see the pictures. And the pictures matter, because once people saw those pictures, they were like, wow, that's a pretty amazing cover. Like, it's sort of like you see like Chamber of Chills 19. It'd be like, Chamber of Chills from 11 to 21 is $5. It's like, but then you see Chamber of Chills 19 and you go, that's a pretty amazing cover. It's like these standout covers all of a sudden had the opportunity to stand out. And when this guide came out, people were all of a sudden saying, oh, those are really cool covers. I've never seen those before. And it's like, you don't know, that there's something cool out there until you know about that something cool out there. And this book really brought those covers to life and, really put a spark under a lot of collectors, to really go out and find these cool covers from the Golden Age. The photojournal really did also keep track of all of the books and all of the different covers from the Golden Age, and it did an amazing job of that. So this book, I picked this up for $20. They weren't massively printed or anything. So with that in mind, like I actually see this guide as having a lot of value because of the significance it has to the hobby, where people all of a sudden were seeing comics in a very different light. You don't just string a whole bunch of books together anymore. It really said, hey, these are the ones that you really should be checking out and spending more time looking up. One of the things that did happen with the Overstreet Guide before the Gerber Journal came out is every so often they would include some pictures. And all of a sudden those books would just jump in value because people were like, oh, those are really cool covers. I've never seen that. And they would get all excited by it. Well, this book basically became a collector's dream, where it was a guide to buying comics. And it really did bring a new life into the hobby. And I can't stress enough how important this book is to the hobby. And I love having a copy of it myself. I have there's two, if you know anything about the Gerber journal, it does a bunch of things, and I have to get into that a little bit. There was 2 books. It was, I believe, A to J, and then K to Z. And one of the things that the Gerber journal did was it did have photos of all the books, but also it did one other very important element. It came up with the Gerber scale. And the Gerber scale is from 0 to 11, or 1 to 11 actually, where you know how difficult it is to get the book based on whether it's a 1, which would be a super common book, like you could almost walk down the street and one would hit you in the face because it's that common, to 11, which may not even exist anymore. It's not even a ghost. It's not even a figment of a ghost. It's just so rare, and you get that scale. That really incentivized collectors to understand how hard it is to find certain books. And that in itself plays a big role. It's about, it's telling you this is the market size for a comic. That's a really important factor. If you know that there's only 5 copies out there of a book, well, that really does say, hey, if you can find one of those, that's a pretty big deal. And the price will sort of, reflect that scarcity. So really important book. I can't stress enough how major it is to have it in your collection. Definitely one that you should flip through, and you can really enjoy seeing some books that you'll never see anywhere else. So Gerber Photojournal, definitely a must, and definitely a book that's underrated. So I hope you enjoyed my 5 underrated books. I'm going to tag a few people. I'm going to tag my good friend Mark Olroyd. Hopefully he will participate. I'll also tag Jerry the Jitterbug. He's a good friend. And I will tag one more person. I'll tag Biggie Shack. Biggie Shack is an interesting guy that has a pretty good collection, actually. It's a pretty impressive collection. And so those are the 3 people I'm tagging. I will link to them in the description so you can check out their channels, and hopefully they will take up the challenge of underrated books. I hope you again enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.